I'm going to review solving and graphing equations in standard form. This is the quiz that we just took. So for number 1, I have 4x plus 2y equals -6. I have to get y by itself, so I need to get rid of 4x. I'm getting rid of the whole thing. The opposite of 4x is -4x, so I'm subtracting 4x from both sides. 4x minus x leaves me with a positive 2y. You cannot combine -6 and -4x, so you're just going to write them beside each other. Your x term has to come first. So because I have 2y, I'm going to divide by 2 for every number in this equation. This will give me 2 divided by 2 is 1, and I'll finally have y by itself. -4 divided by 2 is -2. Keep your x. And -6 divided by 2 is -3. So I want to identify my slope and my y-intercept, because that was half of the quiz, just by identifying these two things. Your slope is the coefficient of x. That does not include the x, it's just the number in front of it. So our slope is -2. When you have a slope that is a whole number, you need to put it over 1, because slope is rise over run. Your y-intercept is the constant that's by itself at the end of the equation once y is by itself, so our y-intercept is -3. Once I've identified my slope and y-intercept, the very first thing that I graph is my y-intercept. It's -3. It crosses the y-axis. So on the y-axis, I'm going to put a point at -3. My slope is -2 over 1. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 2. Then I have to go to the right 1. Once I do that, I connect my points, and that gives me my graph. Number 2. 2x plus y equals 1. Y is not by itself, so I want to get rid of everything that's on the left side except for my y. I have 2x. I'm moving the whole 2x over. It's not the coefficient of x. I'm sorry, it's not the coefficient of y, so I'm moving the whole thing over. 2x minus 2x leaves me with y. I cannot combine 1 and -2x, so I just write them beside each other. Then I look to see if y is by itself. Y is by itself, so I'm done. I identify my slope and my y-intercept. Remember, your slope is the coefficient in front of x. Do not include your x. It's only the number. That is -2. Since it's a whole number, I put it over 1 because I want my slope to be rise over run. My y-intercept is the number by itself, which tells us where we start on the y-axis. Y-intercept is 1, so on my y-axis, I'm going to plot a 1. Once I plot my y-axis, my y-intercept, which is b, then I follow my slope. The numerator says to go down 2 from the y-intercept. The denominator says to go to the right. When you make the point, connect the 2 points that you plotted, and that is your graph. For number 3, my first step is to isolate the y variable. That has already been done. So I'm just going to label my slope and y-intercept. Slope is the coefficient of x, the number in front of x. Again, it's a whole number, so I'm going to put it over 1. My y-intercept, or my b, is the number at the end that is by itself, which is 4. Y-intercept tells me where to start on my y-axis. So on my y-axis, I'm going to plot at 4. And then my slope tells me to go up 3 and to the right 1. So that is my graph. For number 4, the y is not by itself, so I have to isolate my y variable. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides so that I can get 3y equals, I cannot combine these two terms because they are unlike terms. So I'm just going to write them beside each other. Y has a coefficient of 3. This is 3 times y. So to get rid of the 3, I have to divide every number in the equation by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, which leaves me with y. Negative 2 divided by 3 does not give me a whole number, so I'm going to leave it as a simplified fraction. Negative 1 divided by 3 does not give me a whole number, so I'm going to leave it as a simplified fraction as well. My first step is to identify my slope and my y-intercept. Slope is the coefficient of x, so that is negative 2/3. It's already in fraction form, so I don't have to do anything to it. And my y-intercept is the number at the end by itself, which is negative 1/3. To graph this, I'm going to start at 0, as I always do, and my y-intercept is negative 1/3. So that's a third of the way between 0 and negative 1, which is not quite half, so I'm going to go barely past 0 and put a point. From there, I go down 2 whole places, which is going to be right past negative 2, and to the right 3, then I connect my dots. This is a little bit different than what we've been doing. It's really the exact same thing. We're just dealing with graphing a fraction, but you can think of it as a number line. If I were to divide that, I would get negative 33 hundredths, and I could graph that right past 0 to give me negative 1/3. So think of it as a number line and as graphing a fraction or a decimal on the number line, and that is exactly what we're doing for number 4. Let's look at number 5. For number 5, I have x plus y equals 1. I have to get rid of this x. The opposite of x is negative x. X minus x is 0, which leaves me with y. I cannot combine 1 minus x, so I just write these beside each other. Your x term always comes first, so this is y equals negative x plus 1. Identify your slope and your y-intercept. Slope is the coefficient of x. There's not a number here, but there is a sign. And remember, we said when there's not a number there, we will use the number 1, because negative 1 times x is the same thing as negative x. So we're going to put this negative 1 here. When we have a whole number for the slope, we put it over 1. And my y-intercept is the number at the end that's by itself. That is my b. We graph our y-intercept first. So I'm going to go to 1. And then my slope says to go down 1, then to the right 1. So that means for every new point that I make from my previous point, I go down 1 to the right 1, then graph it. Once you connect your points, then you are done graphing. If you have any more questions about converting standard to slope-intercept and graphing these, then let me know in class.